Could the Washington Commanders be for sale? That's the question on everyone's mind after the team put out this statement earlier this morning. Now, they said, quote, Dan and Tanya Snyder and the Washington Commanders announced today that they have hired Bank of America Securities to consider potential transactions. It goes on to say the Snyders remain committed to the team, all of its employees, and its countless fans to putting the best product on the field and continuing the work to set the gold standard for workplaces in the NFL. Now, it's been a bumpy ride since Daniel Snyder bought the team in 1999. Most recently, the team has been rocked by accusations of workplace misconduct. And just last month, Colts owner Jim Irsay said he believes there is merit to removing Snyder from the league's ownership ranks. So for more on what's happening in Washington, let's welcome in our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. JJ, want to get your initial reaction to this news first.
Yeah, it's surprising. It's surprising because you have Dan Snyder, an owner for more than 20 years, nearly a quarter century, and obviously he has dealt with a number of controversies in his time as owner, self-made controversies, always controversies around the team. But no matter what, he's always dug his heels in and said he's not selling the team. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, he said through a statement via spokesperson that he and his wife, Tanya Snyder, were not going to be selling the team. And then 2 weeks later, the news, first via Forbes, that the team and the Snyders had contracted Bank of America to explore a sell of the team. Now, whether that's 100% or a minority stake, we do not yet know. I'm texting right now with sources in Washington trying to get further sort of information, and they're saying, we're sticking to our statement. We are considering everything. And so we do not yet know, Jacqueline, if that means 100% of the Washington Commanders or a minority piece of it. But it is significant because he has said that he would not sell. In fact, just last year, he bought out his minority partners, about a 40% stake. And so now he and his wife own 100% of the team. When this story first broke, it was, okay, is he going to sell 100% or is he just trying to get some cash, right? A number of owners do this where they sell 5, 10, 15, 33% of the team, but they keep the controlling ownership. They just need a little bit of money. It's unclear right now which one this is, but the fact that you have this timeline where he says that he wouldn't sell, where he's under multiple investigations, where multiple investigations have already taken place, both via the NFL and from Congress, the House Oversight Committee. And so today, 2 weeks after Jim Irsay talks about that they should consider that there is merit to removing him as owner, with all of this swirling, that Dan Snyder and his wife are putting out a statement that is not refuting at all the Forbes statement. These are two people, the Snyders, who very, very strongly and in very strong terms a lot of times refute stories that are written about them, that they are corroborating this story, but not saying whether it is a full sell or a minority sell is extremely significant for the future of the ownership of the Washington Commanders.
And JJ, I know we don't know the specific details, but kind of getting back to that statement, quote, potential transactions, can you kind of play out the scenarios moving forward? What could be next?
Yeah, absolutely. So if it is a minority sell, what you would essentially do if you're Dan and Tanya Snyder is you would have a value on the team. Let's just say for easy round numbers, that's $5 billion, which if this team were to sell tomorrow, I think it would easily fetch $5 billion. The Denver Broncos sold for $4.65 billion to the Walton Penner Group earlier this year. And so, yes, this franchise in a major metropolitan area with this incredible history that the Washington franchise has, it would go for $5 billion. You would say, okay, well, we want to sell 20% of the team. So you would take 20% of $5 billion, and that would essentially be the cash that Dan and Tanya Snyder would be able to get from that minority partner or ownership group. And that would then give them the cash to potentially explore a stadium deal where they have hit a number of roadblocks from local governments in the DMV area. So maybe they could use that money to build a new stadium. The FedEx Field is dilapidated. It is one of the worst stadiums in all of the NFL, if not the worst. If it is not just a minority sell, if it's not just a cash infusion, if this is 100% of the sell, what would wind up happening would be very likely Dan Snyder would put this team essentially up for auction. Now he could decide, that he wants the highest bidder. He could decide, you know what, I want to take a lower offer, but I really like this person or this group. The NFL could have some sort of influence on where Daniel Snyder would ultimately sell this team, and then that sell would then have to be approved by the majority of NFL owners, and usually that is a formality at that point. So those are the two ways that this could go. Is it possible that he's just contracted a bank and there's not going to be any sell whatsoever? I assume it's possible, but in my experience, you don't normally put out press releases when you aren't ultimately going to sell even a piece of the team. And even when you are considering selling a piece of a team, you usually don't put out press releases. So again, this is a very significant moment, something that the Commanders are not giving more insight to on just how much of the team is available. But this feels, Jacqueline, like it's very, very important. Like this could mean the entire team is up for sale.
So, JJ, why now? We talked about the drama surrounding the team, just kind of thing after thing, but why release that statement right now?
So we just had the NFL owners meetings in New York that I was at, and I was talking with Jim Irsay along with a number of media members where he says, yes, I do believe that there is merit to consider removing Dan Snyder. You have to go back to July 2021, where Daniel Snyder was sort of placed in this pseudo suspension from the NFL. Is it still ongoing? Is it not? Depends on who you ask. The NFL says yes, that nothing's changed. Daniel Snyder's lawyers say all restrictions have been removed. He just decides that he doesn't want to go to these owners' meetings. And so depends on who you believe there. He was fined $10 million. But there is another investigation. In fact, there are two more investigations that Mary Jo White is currently leading. I've been told by a number of sources there's no timeline on it. One source noted to me a couple of weeks ago that the timeline is more like weeks than months, which is good to know, but Roger Goodell is not putting any timeline on it. Those two investigations, one looks into potential financial improprieties, essentially, and this is a very shorthand way of putting a very complex financial issue, but that the Commanders were allegedly hiding certain ticket revenues that should have been given to the league and then shared and distributed among the 32 franchises. That's a big no-no. And if it turns out that that's true, and there is no evidence that I know of so far that any of those allegations have been confirmed, if that is confirmed, that would certainly lead to a number of issues with other owners and a potential sell. The other one involved an allegation of sexual harassment, unwanted touching by Daniel Snyder that took place more than a decade ago. That allegation was from a former Washington employee. And so that is what Mary Jo White, the independent investigator that has been commissioned by the NFL to look into, we are still awaiting the results of that. Roger Goodell has said that they would release the findings of those investigations publicly. An interesting difference, because in the Beth Wilkinson report from 2021 that looked into the toxic workplace culture, there was no written report even produced. It was just orally, and then they, in a few bullet points in a press release, essentially said that there was a toxic workplace environment with the Washington football team and that they needed to correct it. So why now? Maybe there is writing on the wall, perhaps, that Daniel Snyder is seeing. Maybe he's decided that he's done with the controversies, the self-inflicted wounds, the controversies that always surround this team, and he's ready to sell. Maybe he wants money for a stadium deal. All of those options very much on the table. We don't have any further clarity at this moment which one it is, but again, the fact that we are at this point right now where Daniel Snyder, who has dug in his heels for years, is saying, I'm considering all possible transactions, means, in my opinion, that a transaction is very likely to come.
And that is our lead NFL insider, Jonathan Jones. Thank you so much, JJ. If you're just joining us here on CBS Sports HQ, just in, Dan Snyder exploring team sale options for the Washington Commanders after releasing a statement. Make sure you check out the Pick Six podcast. The guys will, of course, be breaking all of this down. You can download and listen wherever you get your podcast. Scan that QR code there. Stay with HQ throughout the day as we learn any more updates.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.